Welcome everybody back to the Morning Juice. I am your host, Juice. Before we get started today, first and foremost, I'd like to wish a happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, especially to my mom, my stepmom, and even my ex-wife. I hope all y'all have a great Mother's Day. Today's guest is a friend of mine, goes by the name Cowboy. He's going to talk about his mental health journey and what he does today to keep in recovery. So with that being said, let's introduce Cowboy. What's up, bro?
Hey man, how you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you. All right, Cowboy. Let's talk about your journey and your road to recovery and what you do today.
Okay. Well, like a lot of folks out there, I had an alcoholic dad and emotionally abusive mom, I'd say.
Yeah.
Where it was just you didn't know what was gonna set her off. Sometimes the little things would just blow up out of proportion. My dad drinking a lot. He was in the army and everything, and there's some PTSD on his part.
Right.
And some nights he'd get to drinking, and I call it, screaming at ghosts. He'd be sitting there drinking and just start screaming and hollering and everything, and then sometimes take it out on me. One of my earliest memories of my dad is me as a kid. I don't really know how old I was, but I'm like super young, right? And I'm trying to get him to play with me, and he gets mad and then kind of tosses me off him, and then starts. So we shared a bed, and then he starts just jumping on me, like body slamming me up and down. One of the first memories I had of him is just seeing him over me like this, all angry like. And there's times where he was at a bar. I didn't want to go in the bar, so I stayed in the car. And then I had to go to the bathroom. I didn't want to go into the bar, so I went across the street to the King Soopers, and he came outside and I wasn't in the car. So he got all mad, and when he saw me walking back, he almost hit me with the car. Got out and just started wailing on me in the parking lot, kicked me in the chest. Spartan kicked me down and everything. And so, there's a lot of that. And, I didn't have a whole lot of friends growing up either. I was always kind of a loner. I went to Catholic school first, and I don't know, I was kind of just excluded.
Yeah.
Didn't really have a solid group of friends until probably middle school. And even then it was, I was more of a last resort kind of guy. Like, no one ever came to my house to scoop me up. I was always having to go out and find them.
Right.
Which led me to being pretty, isolated and lonely. Stayed in my room all the time. And, folks with depression and everything, especially, at least in my case when I was young, not having those, not having people to interact with, not having someone to socialize with and talk to things about, really kind of just makes you internalize everything.
Absolutely.
And it's like, oh, I don't have any friends because I'm always so quiet, or I'm weird, or, what do I got to do to not get my dad mad at me or something like that, and then, so, there's a lot of that, and one of the big things I struggled with is, how am I gonna be so broken and damaged by all this when there are people out there who have it worse than me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that's like, there are people who would kill to have what I have, right? And here I am complaining about it because my feelings are hurt. But that's the thing, everybody handles things differently. I think one of our first conversations was about something like that. Because I learned from my dad, when you have emotions, to, not healthy coping mechanisms. The first time we talked, it's because I punched a tree.
Yeah. I remember that.
The tree won. So those unhealthy coping mechanisms and everything, and I was real angry when I was young because I didn't know. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have any way to let my emotions out, so I bottled it all up. Ignore and override.
Right.
And when that spills out, it spills out as anger, as you go from 0 to 100.
Absolutely.
Like that.
That was mine. You either happy or you're mad. There was no in
That's it.
between.
There's no in between. You know, my family got around to calling me a nickname Happy
Yeah.
because I was always in a ticked off mood, or that was their perception, is I was always upset. And it's just because, you know, I didn't really talk much. And, you know, my mom told me that one time, she's like, you know, sometimes I just kind of forget that you need help or that you need things too because you're so quiet and you keep to yourself. I'm like, well, it's because I'm the oldest, right? I got younger brothers and sisters who need things too, and you know, I can't be selfish. And in my mind, I thought I was being selfish, and now I realize I was just asking for the basic. I just needed the basic stuff,
Yeah.
and that's not selfish.
No, not at all.
You know, and so a lot of that, you know, boiled over, and then as I grew up, I developed social anxiety, depression got worse, you know, history of self-harm, burned myself, heat up a knife and burn my upper arms.
That's a new one. Like, I've heard of a lot, but
Yeah.
that's a new one.
Yeah, you know, like I got this one right here. Kind of looks like a cat's butthole, so I was thinking maybe getting a tattoo of a cat walking away. But yeah, so I would do that, and then I would find myself, like when I was stressed out or being anxious, I'd find myself like pressing into the burns just to get that physical pain, because that physical pain gave me mental clarity.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like you can't see the pain that's up here.
Right.
You don't know what's going on. Like you just know it hurts and you don't understand why.
Right. You want it to shut up.
Right, exactly. But you know, something like this, you're like, I know why that hurts. Yeah, I did the burning, and then I did cut into my chest. I just did a stupid little carving of like this old Norse rune that was supposed to be for strength, and I carved it into my chest, and that was stupid. But, you know, I mean, all self-harm is really,
Yeah.
like, it doesn't really help. It just hurts you, you know, and it makes it easier next time to go farther.
Yes.
And that's ultimately what landed me in the ranch. You know, I had a bit of a mental break last year. Started having nightmares and stuff of my dad, and like nightmares of me killing myself and everything. And my mental health just declined. And you know, I never really had. It's hard for me to keep friends. Not necessarily hard to make them, because you know, once I get talking, I can just talk your dang ear off, right? But I've always felt like I'm too much for people, or people have always left, you know. So I reserve myself so that I don't be too much to push them away.
So you had abandonment issues also then.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's because the thing is like I don't want to be a problem, because if I'm a problem, they're gonna leave.
Right.
Nobody wants to deal with problems.
Right.
And I've had people tell me straight up, you're too much. You need to figure your shit out. Sorry, can I cuss in this?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. Sorry. I guess you can edit that out.
No.
Okay.
Hey, cuss away.
And, you know, like, you need to figure your shit out. You're too much. You're always sad. You're always mopey. Something's always wrong with you. You need to just be happy. I hate that. Like, have you tried just being happy? Like, no shit.
Right.
You know, if it were that easy.
If it was that easy, I would smile for you.
Like, yeah, just try being happy. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a freaking computer. You can't turn me off and turn me back on again, and I'm fixed.
Absolutely.
But you know, so depression got worse and worse, and then last year, I said those nightmares started, and I just got pretty bad. Got to the point where I had this one nightmare. It was very, very vivid. Like I could hear things, I could smell it, I could feel it.
Yes.
And it was a nightmare that I had shot myself in the chest in my work parking lot. And that wigged me out, you know? And it bothered me for the whole day until she's my best friend now. You know, she eventually, she was also my boss at the time. And she kind of locked me in the office with her and said, "What's going on with you today?" And I told her, and then when I told her, I just started bawling. And long story short, she drove me to the ER that day, and I got admitted to an M1 hold, and that was my first time at a psychiatric hospital.
Aren't those fun?
Oh man, it wasn't too bad until we had this one guy come in. He was homeless, but he looked like Fred Flintstone. No, Barney and like Barney from the Flintstones and a bulldog.
Oh.
Had the offspring, and then that was him, and he was, and he was so messy. Anyway, so yeah, I was there for 5 days, and I was feeling good, thinking that fixed me, but that's not what those places are for.
No, they're
just
to stabilize
and then send you back out in the world. And so that happened, and still on a leave of absence from my job. So for the next 2 months, I just kind of went fishing, went hiking, rode bulls. I just kind of did things for me that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I was feeling pretty great until, work called me and said I could come back. So I did. And I came back, and I was there. I was back for about 2 weeks, and then we had a meeting for some stupid HR training thing about what kind of manager are you. You take personality tests and everything.
Oh.
It's just a whole lot of fun. And so I'm there, and it's at the store when I came back, they put me at a different store. And so it was at the store where everything had happened, where I had pretty much, the world came to a stop for me and everything changed.
Right.
When I was vocal about how I was feeling and that I needed help. Get there, I'm feeling real anxious because I ain't seen anybody. I was in the middle of my shift, and then we just kind of left. No explanation, no bye, how you doing? Snuck me out the back door, and I was gone. For months. No one knew what was happening. I was told not to talk about it to the staff because we didn't want them freaking out.
Yeah.
So, I had them reaching out to me, what's going on? So I'm super anxious. I go there, and I'm in the meeting, everything, and the anxiety just keeps building and building and building and building. Like it does, full on panic attack. And I left. As soon as it was done, I just beelined right out the door, got in my car, and drove. And I was just tired of feeling that way. Just tired of it. I'm so done. Why can't I just have normal emotions? Why can't I just be flatline? Why am I always having these ups and downs?
Why is it so extreme one way or the other?
100%. Why can I be fine 1 minute and then 5 minutes later, I want to go and live under a rock? So I went to my brother's house. So I had my firearms taken, and he had them. I snuck in, and I grabbed one of my guns, and I went back up into the mountains back in Colorado, and I just kind of sat there with them, with it, and I was looking, and I had every intention of doing it. And I did. I pulled that trigger. I had it right here. I can hear the wind blowing. I feel it on my face. You were there. I think you were one of the first people I told I was having flashbacks at the ranch.
Mm-hmm.
To that moment. And then to when I cut my wrist open, and I pulled the trigger. The hammer dropped. But the silence was so loud. The bullet was done. That's like a 1 in a million chance. I re-racked it, pointed at the stop sign next to me, and pulled the trigger, and I put a golf ball size hole in that stop sign. That should have been the first clue that God wasn't done with me yet.
Right, divine intervention was taking over.
And that made it worse, because I'm like, oh my God, what did I just try to do? So I went bar hopping after that. 3 different bars, ended up at the local honky tonk in Denver, called the Grizzly Rose. I'm sitting there, I'm probably way too drunk to be served, but they served me, and sitting there, I'm drinking, and I just start crying in the bar. And then a couple girls come up and ask me if I'm okay, and I just dismiss them, finish my beer, and then I leave and I drive home. That started me drinking the next 2.5 weeks every night. Just getting completely hammered.
To clear that head up some.
Yeah.
Because that was the only thing you could do to not have your...
Exactly. That
where
was the only
head...
thing that just kind of numbed everything.
Right.
You know? And then I started cutting. I'd bought a new knife off of Amazon. It was nice and sharp. And it was just little cuts at first, kind of like scratches and everything. And then the last night before, about a week before I got to the ranch, I remember exactly what I drank. I remember how fast I drank it. And then things are kind of blurry. I drank a whole liter of Crown and a 6-pack of Coors Banquet in an hour.
You got blackout.
I did. And I went to self-harm again. And super drunk. And I went way too far.
Yeah. Because at that point you can't feel it anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
Way too far. And I just remember making the cut and then going, like, just not believing. My arms all of a sudden crimson. Like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's only bits and pieces. Apparently, I took a picture of my wrist and sent it to everybody over the sink, but these were covered in blood, just full of blood. And I was talking to my sister, I guess, and then I told her, I deserve this. I don't deserve to live. I'm done. I'm hoping I don't wake up and all this shit.
Absolutely.
She's up in Minnesota. And so I guess that, I managed to stop the bleeding. I wrap it up. I don't know where I found gauze and a bandage wrap, but I found it. And next thing I know, I wake up and there's cops and EMS all over me. My dad's screaming at me again. My dad's 7 years sober at this point, so good for him.
Right.
He got my new stepmom. They've been married since 2014, and she really helped it. She saved his life, so kudos to her.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember being just so angry that the cops were there, that the EMS was there. And I remember texting my sister saying, "What the hell did you just do? You fucked me." And I remember refusing to let them put me on a gurney or anything. So I walked up the stairs because I was in the basement, and I climbed into the ambulance, and they took my blood alcohol when I got to the ER and everything. And I had a 0.4 BAC.
Wow.
Which is pretty much the start of alcohol poisoning.
Right, because it pretty much means 40% of your blood is alcohol.
Yeah. And then again, there's blackout, but from what I was told, I was an asshole to everybody in the ER. I guess when they brought me in, I flipped everybody off. Told the doctor that, I said some not too kind things to him as he was stitching my arm up, which is probably why the stitch job wasn't the best.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, they discharged me, and I didn't have anybody to pick me up. My dad told me I couldn't live with them anymore. And I'm like, okay, what do? I got to go back to my mom's house. Well, I'm all the way on the other side of town. So I call my mom, and she says she'll come get me. So I start walking, and, I probably walk about 3 or 4 miles out of the hospital after being discharged by myself, just walking. That's what I had: house slippers, basketball shorts, and the shirt. I stank. I was all sweaty and nasty smelling, and I was just walking. Just out in the world, nobody knew what I had just been through.
Right.
Seeing all these people just going about their day, driving their cars, crossing the street. And just, like what, thinking about what just happened. Now that I'm not drunk anymore, I'm clear-headed, maybe a little hungover.
Or a lot.
Or a lot, you know. Couldn't tell if I was feeling crappy because of hangover or my arm, maybe both. And I had a very long conversation with God. Very long conversation with God. And it was just to the extent of, hey man, I get it now. I'm stepping in what you're smelling. And I can't do this alone. What I'm doing isn't working. So if you're up for it, please help. I'm surrendering to you completely.
Absolutely.
And my mom finally picks me up, takes me home. Awkward car ride. You know, she goes, "You want Starbucks?" I'm like, "No."
Soccer mom don't know what to say. You want some Starbucks?
I just want to go to bed. So we stop by my dad's and I pick up some clothes and stuff and I get my dog. And I get my dog and go home to my mom's. I get myself some McDonald's and I'm sitting there eating a quarter pounder with cheese. French fries, extra salt, and a large Diet Coke. And it's like the best cheeseburger I've ever had. You know, and my mom comes and says, sits down and she tries to talk to me about it. And, it's very awkward. It's like, I didn't want to talk about it. Though she didn't want to talk about it.
Right. But as a parent, you feel like you have to. Yeah.
And we're just like, emotions are not something my family does very well.
Right.
My dad's side of the family, it's ignore and override. Like Princess Elsa, conceal, don't feel.
Right.
On my mom's side of the family, it's jokes. I'm feeling off today. Oh, it's because, that couch looks stupid. I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
So stupid jokes like that. Self-depreciating humor, all of that.
Masking.
Yeah. And, with someone who has ADHD, so autism and ADHD, I am someone who's needs to have a routine, but also hates having a routine.
Right.
And this threw a wrench in all of it, and I got used to my family not really doing the emotion thing, and now everyone's trying to do the emotion thing, and I'm just like, what is happening right now?
Right.
So I went to bed, prayed, was talking to my best friend, and she was so upset with me. So upset with me. And, she's just, I don't know what to say. I don't know why you would do this to yourself. I'm so disappointed. She's like, I care about you and I am here for you. But if you keep doing stuff like this, if you don't start really trying to help yourself and get better, you're going to lose me as a friend. And, she had already been there for me more than anybody else had. I mean, all the times I've been down, no one's ever offered to take me to the ER.
Right.
No one's ever sat there and listened to me and validated how I was feeling. So that was an extra just
right in the gut.
Oof. Ouch. So I woke up the next morning, I had a therapy appointment, and I woke up next morning in a panic. I just wanted to leave. I just wanted to get out of Dodge, right? I did not want to be where I was. I didn't care where I was going.
Right.
I just wanted to be gone. So I go to my therapy appointment, and on the way there, I'm looking up places to go. And I get on ChatGPT, and I'm like, hey man, is there a place I can go that's out in the sticks for mental health and maybe has, equine therapy or, some other stuff? And the first thing it pulled up a couple places in Colorado, and then it pulled up the ranch. So I called these numbers. I called 4 places in Colorado. 2 of them didn't answer. 1 of them was for women only. And the last one was for kids. It was 18 and under.
Yeah.
So then I called the ranch. And and talked to him, got some information, went into my appointment, told my therapist what happened. And then therapist said, "What do you need from me?" And I said, "I don't think I'm going to hurt myself right now, but I am not stable. And I don't trust myself to be alone." So she put me on an on hold again. Called the cops, ambulance came, cops came, I had a knife in my boot, which freaked everybody out again. Cops confiscated it, took me to the hospital, got transferred to another psychiatric hospital, went through all that intake, which is, a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah.
And then after 3 days, when I was able to get my phone back, I called the ranch and I said, "Hey, this is what's going on. Can y'all help? I'm tired of this. I'm losing friends. My life is on hold. I can't get over this hump. Can you help?" And, they went through the questions. I want to make sure I wasn't a danger to myself or anybody else. And, it was kind of in the air after that. I didn't really know if I was going to get in. They called back and he said, "Well, the guy I talked to said, let me look into it and we'll probably get back to you tomorrow." An hour later, he calls the hospital to talk to me and says, "When can you get here?" I said, "As soon as they let me leave, I will be on my way." He goes, "Friday or Saturday work for you?" I said, "Yes, let's shoot for Friday." So I told him, I got let out of the psychiatric hospital on Thursday, went home, packed up some stuff. I told my mom this is what I was doing. She helped me kind of get the list together and everything. And then we drove 17 and a half hours from Denver all the way to the ranch.
Oh, wow. You didn't fly?
No, we drove straight overnight.
Oh, wow.
Almost hit 2 deer. Saw that, like, when we went to Missouri, I think it was it was Kansas. I don't know why I remember this, but the lines on the street were all crooked like this.
Oh.
The lane divider. And we're just like, what the hell is going on here? But yeah, so I got to the ranch and I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't what I got. It was beyond anything I could have imagined.
Yeah.
There's so many people in there and they're stretched so thin, and then there's so many possible things that could go on. There are people there who are still actively in crisis.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like a tension in the air and everything. Well, at the ranch, there's not that. I remember my first night at the ranch, I sit down with my house and we do our nightly talk. And they all told me I didn't have to share. But I'm like, no, I'm committed. If I want to kick this thing in the ass, I'm done with this. I'm tired of losing friends. I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of it affecting my life the way that it is. So I shared. And I got halfway to my story. I got right to the part about the gun. And then I just completely broke down, started bawling my eyes out in front of these 7 dudes that I had never met before. I met them all like 3 hours ago, and I'm just bawling my face out now, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get out of here. So I walk out, just start crying, and Lee comes out. Well, no, Lee's out there already smoking on the gazebo. He just goes, "Hey man, are you all right?" And I just kind of wave him off. And I'm just sitting there bawling, and he just kind of lets me do my thing. And then this guy Trent comes out and just stands there. And they're just sitting there letting me do my thing. Not saying nothing, not judging, just being there while I'm just, heavy breathing, ugly crying.
Snotting.
Yeah, just trying to hold it in. And, now I'm self-conscious. I got an audience. So I try to stop crying, and Trent goes, "Nope, just let it out."
There you go.
And then he comes up, starts talking to me, and goes, "This is the place for you. This is where you can come and let all of that poison out. And he goes, "Can I give you a hug?" Um, I was like, "Yeah, man." And then Lee came over and gave me a hug, and then I met other Lee the next day, and he pulled me aside and asked me how I was doing, and then that was pretty much the ranch. You know, everybody at the ranch was just so personable. It was the complete opposite of what the psychiatric hospitals were.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, like y'all made me feel like y'all actually cared instead of just, oh, we got this crazy here. Let's try to get them not so crazy and send them back out.
No, we had love for everybody there.
100%. You know, I mean, even the horses were exceptional. Grumpy ass Doc.
Always.
You know, and I worked through so much stuff. You know, not only was it intensive therapy, like 8 hours of therapy every day for 66 days, but meeting all the people that, you know, were in the same boat, more or less. Whether it was just mental health or it was substance abuse and mental health or sex addiction or
Yeah.
whatever, you know, everybody, like, it was the safest place I've ever been. Didn't matter what I said. People didn't judge.
All those alpha males that are just
100%.
crying all the time.
You know, the first person I cried on, it was like my second week there. And I walked out, and after I had shared something and I was feeling, you know, anxious and everything, I think it was when I first shared everything with the gun, when the flashbacks first started coming in, and Brandon walks out there and he just talked to me, and my first impression of Brandon is this bald-headed fit dude. He just kind of looked like a dick. And he comes over there and he's just talking to me, and then I start getting choked up, and he just comes over and gives me the biggest freaking bear hug. And here I am, crying on a man's shoulder I met 2 weeks ago. You know, the real healing is talking with those other people, those other clients.
Absolutely. 100%.
You know, having a community is so underrated. Having a village, that's where you can really heal. That's where you really, when you find your people, and you know that there's nothing, like, those people know the rawest parts of you, and there ain't nothing that you can do or say that's going to make them think less of you or think differently of you. That's where you can really start to grow, and that's when those, you know, those open wounds turn to scabs, and those scabs turn to scars, and those scars start to be a little less prominent. And the ranch saved my life.
Absolutely.
You know, it got me from Rachel melting my brain with EMDR to, I mean, there was one time we did a 2-hour EMDR session. I was just exhausted after that. I felt my body was sore, everything I was like, ugh. You know, to Michelle, to the groups, to even old Mark.
Oh yeah, Mark.
You know, everybody. And I met the coolest freaking people there. To this day, I'm still in touch with the people. I talk to somebody from the ranch every day, whether it's you or, you know, Tom or Brandon or Blake, both of them. You know, like, you go there not knowing what it's going to be, thinking it's going to be like any other psychiatric hospital, and then you just find brothers.
To me, the ranch is like a magical place.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you get to go into the countryside and heal, and then you can listen to the waters of the creek, the leaves, see the deer, the turkey. Like, it's just
cold
like
plunges.
Cold plunges, absolutely cold plunges.
Oh man, that creek was freezing. This one time, I remember. This one time we did cold plunge, and that water was so cold I couldn't get my words right, and I remember saying this, like, I got water in my ass creek.
I remember that.
And Brandon had just done a backflip. He goes, "Did you just say ass creek?" I said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I said."
I remember y'all going out there when it was like 40 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And just say, you know what? It's just going to be colder. And I was like, I do cold plunges myself, but I am not when it's 40 degrees outside when that water's probably 30 at best. But yeah, y'all were a clique.
Yeah, I tell you, man. And that was the thing. Like, we egged each other on, too. Like, we were like, you stop it. Don't talk about my friend like that. One of us was having a bad day. Like, hey, guess what? Let's go do a cold plunge. Like, no, I'm good. We're doing a cold plunge.
Yeah, we're going to go out there.
Damn it, we're doing a cold plunge. The last cold plunge I did, I remember I walked back to the house. I just had my boots, my underwear, and a hat on. And I just walked straight into that house and down into the group room. And everyone's just like, oh, I'm like, I'm wet. I'm not putting my clothes back on. But, and I learned so many skills there too. Breathing skills, DBT skills. I learned how to ask for help. It's probably the most useful skill I learned.
Yeah.
Asking for help, because that's hard.
Yeah. It's still the hardest thing for me to do it. And I'm almost at 2 years now.
100%. It's still hard. I mean, shoot, I'm only at 7 months, but it's still hard. I mean, there's still times where I don't ask for help when I should.
Yeah.
I mean, just recently when I was, I had the hiccup with my meds, I didn't ask for help. I just, same old, But, the thing where those skills and stuff really worked for me is when I got out of the ranch. Like, I knew they worked at the ranch, but they're going to work there because if you don't remind yourself to do the skills, someone's going to remind you to do the skills, right?
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many times someone would stop me and go, hey, let's breathe. You're freaking out.
Breathe.
Or, go put your face in a bowl of cold water.
Let me go grab the oranges.
That's right. And I remember this was like third or fourth day out of the ranch. I'm back home. So overwhelming. Back out in the wild. You've been in a place where everyone's all sharing their feelings and sensitive and open. And now you're back there and you gotta remember that you can't just go up to someone and the first thing you say to them is, let's see, mentally I'm doing.
Right.
So it was a lot. And I remember I was like, you know what I need to do? I need a cold plunge. So I'm back in Colorado in Clear Creek up in Golden. Clear Creek is what the Coors company uses to make their beer.
Oh, okay.
So where I went to do this cold plunge was literally maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles up the stream. It was snowing, like 30 degrees. And that water is way too cold for anybody who has a lick of sense to be doing anything near it.
Right.
But I was like, nope, I need this. I'm going to hate it. It's going to suck, but I'm going to feel amazing afterwards. I was trying to get my brother to come with me. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, well, shoot, there's no one else I can really try to rope into this. So I got a rope and I tied the rope one end to a tree and then I tied the other end to my ankle. And I went into this freezing water and I did a cold plunge. And let me tell you, as soon as I put my feet in that water, everything was on fire.
I'm sure.
Like it was such a crazy, like Coloradans will wear flip-flops and shorts in a blizzard, right? But I tell you, when I was doing that cold plunge, there were people stopping, like cars stopping and pulling over, people walking, stopping and just looking at me like, what is this crazy redneck doing? And did cold plunge and everything just got quiet again. Anxiety's gone. And that's one of the skills I still use every day is the tip scale.
Absolutely.
I take a hot shower and then at the end, the last couple of minutes, turn it to cold and just let that cold water run down on me. Constant check-ins with myself.
Grounding.
Grounding. Oh yeah, grounding. The breathing exercises. The 4-7-8.
Yeah.
Um, I went out and bought oranges and put them in my freezer at home. My mom comes up and goes, "What are the oranges in the freezer for?" I said, "For when I get activated." She goes, "What do you mean activated?" I'm like, "Well, when I start feeling, anxious or something, I grab one of them." She goes, "And what do you do?" I just hold it.
Hold
I
it, smell it, scratch it, rub it on the back of your neck.
And she goes, "So you just fondle oranges?" I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
I fondle fruit.
I fondle fruit.
That's what I do, and it calms me. You should try it. And I think my oranges are still in her freezer. I don't think she's taken them out. I wonder if she's used them. Maybe I'll ask her. It's Mother's Day. I'll give her a call and ask her.
See, I did oranges, lemons, and limes. That way I could have different smells, different textures.
Well, another thing is those popsicles that they gave us at the ranch.
Oh, yeah. The greatest popsicles ever.
And I buy those things. I've got 4 boxes of them in my freezer at home right now. And those are another thing, too, that help with the tip thing. Like eating those, smelling them.
Absolutely.
So I'm doing that. And for a while there, me and a couple of the guys at the ranch, we had a text chain going. We still do. We just don't do it every day anymore. But we would keep the routine we had at the ranch.
Y'all would do PIMs?
Yep. Our morning check-ins, goal for the day, a quote, and then we check in at the end of the night. And, hey, this is, highs, lows, gratitudes. This is, my goal for the day. This is how it went, and everything like that. And, trying to give myself grace too, knowing that it's not linear. Recovery isn't just one straight line.
No, it's supposed to go.
There's ups and downs. Yeah. There's, 1 step forward, 3 steps back. There's days where you're wondering if you're even going to make it.
I tell everybody it's like the stock market. Every day is like this, all day, every day. But if you look at over the course of a year, it's always a steady, straight line going upward. Ever so slightly. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
And that's kind of what you shoot for, once you're starting your recovery.
For sure. Yeah, and that's just it. I'm still new in my recovery. Some things are super easy. Some things are hard. My roommate just recently, because I've chosen to refrain from alcohol consumption. I never really had a problem with it, but just knowing the state I was in last time I was drinking and what I was doing, I don't know that I'm going to go back to drinking. Right. I think I might just stay sober. I don't need it.
Yeah.
You're
not needing it to quiet down your head no more because you've got other skills that can do that for you.
Exactly, because I have healthy coping mechanisms now. Right? And do I miss the taste of beer? Yeah, I do. I loved beer. But there's zero beer now. Heineken Zero is not terrible. And I found out the other day there's this thing called zero proof liquor. It's crazy. I'm not even going to go there because that just seems like it's a stepping stone in the wrong direction.
Right.
But my roommate, we were shopping and he goes, "Hey, do you mind if I get some beer?" And I'm confident enough in myself and my abilities and my tribe now. I'm like, absolutely, you can get yourself some beer.
Right, because it's not like you're 3 days out of recovery. No. Now you got a good 7 months behind you. So
yeah. And he goes, "Are you sure?" I've wanted some. I just didn't want to, tempt you or anything. I'm like, nope. You get that beer because you want it. You're an adult. We're both adults, and this is a test.
It is.
And that beer's been in the house for almost 2 weeks, and I haven't touched it. I would be lying if I didn't say when I opened the fridge and I saw it in there, I'm like, but I haven't touched it. If I'm craving a beer, I'll go get a 6-pack of zero beer. Heineken Zero is my go-to.
Yeah. Do you still do meetings?
Oh, yeah.
How many meetings you try to hit a week?
So I go to the alumni meeting every Wednesday, and then I try to do the Recovery Matters meeting every night.
Okay.
It's hard, though, because I work nights mostly.
Yeah.
But I'm always checking in with people.
Right. I mean, I text you several times a week.
Yeah. I'm always checking in with people. I'm always conscious of how I'm feeling, checking in with myself. That's another really important thing I do, is I check with myself. If I'm notice that I'm starting to feel some type of way, I will stop and go, why? Let's really look at it right now. Am I feeling this way because I should feel this way, or am I feeling this way because I'm taking it personally?
Right. Is this thought an actual just thought, or is this
Mm-hmm.
thought have feeling behind it? And are those feelings validated?
And that's it, and it's constantly checking yourself. Like, you got to have a certain amount of integrity if you're going to be serious about recovery. You got to be willing to have hard conversations with yourself, and you got to be willing for others to have hard conversations with you.
Right. You can't take stuff as personal when you're in
because,
recovery.
The best people to have around you in recovery are people who are going to call you out on your shit.
Absolutely.
And, Jordan Peterson, he said, you get away with nothing. All that unfelt trauma, grief, pain, sorrow, all of that will come back with interest. And having people that will call you out when you're not seeing it or when you're refusing to call yourself out,
right,
is immensely helpful. And, and I don't know who said this, but another good quote is, it is good to have friends who care if you hurt.
Absolutely. You don't want a bunch of yes men.
No,
friends.
Absolutely not.
It's terrible for you.
You want someone who's going to hold you accountable, especially when you can't hold yourself accountable.
100%.
And I just, the ranch has changed my life. I've moved out of Colorado finally. I'm living on my own. I've got, I'm going back to church. I'm back in touch with God.
So moving from Colorado back to Nashville, was that a personal preference for the recovery market that's in Nashville and to be closer to your people, or what made you decide to move back to Nashville from Colorado?
So I had wanted to leave Colorado for a while. I always found an excuse to not do it. My reasoning for leaving Colorado is I wanted a fresh start. Even before all this stuff that happened last year, I wanted a fresh start. But at the ranch, there was this kind of feeling of finality. Like, it was now or never. If I don't do this right now, I'm never going to do it. And I'm going to be stuck in the same rut, stuck in the same situation, stuck in the same place. So I took the leap.
There you go.
I took a leap of faith. And, Nashville, Tennessee was never on my radar. I was either going to go down to Texas or go up to Montana. But because of the ranch and the people I met there, I knew that I had the beginning of a solid foundation.
Absolutely.
That it was going to be new, and I wouldn't know anybody or hardly anybody, but I wasn't going to be alone. And that I knew that there were people all around the city that if I really needed help, I could call.
Oh, absolutely.
And, I'm 99% sure they're going to be there for me, no questions asked.
Absolutely.
I was going to do it by myself. And just on a whim, I reached out to one of my friends and said, hey, man, so we had been talking about moving in together for a while. I'm like, hey, do you want to move to Nashville with me? And he goes, why? So just, I don't know. I feel like it'd make it a little easier for me if I were someone that I knew for longer than 3 months. And he said, yeah. And so we got a nice place up in Bordeaux. And, I took a step back from management. I'm not managing really anymore. So I have a less stressful job, which is nice. I've picked up a new hobby of leatherworking, which is also a good outlet for me in my recovery. It allows me to pour my emotions and stuff into something. And so, I'm making clutches, purses, handbags, holsters.
Nice.
So, I made a clutch a couple days ago and I just sold it to someone last night. So, I'm at a place now where everything there's no limit.
Absolutely. It's a good place.
It's amazing. I'm not burdened. I don't feel weighed down by my past anymore. There's a line in a song by Sam Barber. It's called "Don't Let Your Past Define Your Name and Cloud the Promises of Today."
There you go. I like that one. You always be pulling out some good quotes.
Well, I mean, there's power in words.
It is. I agree.
And that's one of the things why I think the ranch works so well is because it changes how you think. It turns all those negative thoughts you have about yourself and it makes you twist them.
Because all you got to do is just change a word here or there.
And the sentence has a completely different meaning.
Right. I agree.
And like all the songs I used to listen to, I'm listening to them now and I have a different understanding of them now.
Right.
Like everything I understand, my view of the world is completely different. And it's because I check in with myself. It's because I have people holding me accountable. It's because when I'm feeling super anxious or sad or depressed, instead of just sitting in it, I take a shower. I do self-care. I brush my teeth.
Right.
I go for a walk. I eat a popsicle. Sometimes even on my off days when I'll shower, I don't get my beard all straightened and pretty. I'll just straighten my beard or put deodorant on.
Right.
It's silly, the smallest thing can give you a sense of accomplishment for the day. And then you can build on that.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things at the ranch was make your bed. That was like a requirement.
It was required.
Because no matter how your day went,
at least you got your bed made.
You got your bed made.
You got one positive no matter what.
Yeah. And, that's just kind of going in with that mentality. One good thing every day. My dog wake up and she's there with her stinky breath.
Yeah.
Going outside and it's beautiful out. Working on leather, getting a text from a friend, or just, one thing that keeps hitting me recently is like, I can't believe I'm actually out of Colorado. Like, that's just an amazing feeling for me. Like, I'm finally out doing my own thing. I feel, after leaving the ranch, I honestly feel so blessed and just, I wouldn't recognize myself 7-8 months ago.
So, on that note, you're like me. You would tell everybody if they're going to go residential, you would absolutely recommend the ranch.
Oh, 100%. In fact, I have recommended the ranch to people.
Same.
I've talked to people and I've been like, hey man, you should check this place out.
Now, if somebody's out there struggling right now and they heard your story and they're like, man, that kind of sounds like where I'm at. What's one piece of final advice you would give them to get them over the hump to try to do this?
Well, if they're anything like me, then they're more worried about being a burden on other people. Or they're thinking that they're a burden on other people. And I guarantee you, everybody in your life would much rather you go to the ranch than you do something stupid.
Absolutely. I like that.
Don't choose a permanent solution for a short-term problem.
Absolutely. That sounds like Curtis.
And, yeah, well, where do you think I got it from? Let me tell you another guy that'll mind fuck you. Sometimes talking to Curtis leaves you with more questions than you had going into the conversation.
Yeah.
That was one of the big things that my friend said after I told her what happened. She goes, I don't think you understand the impact of what you were trying to do is going to have. And, having been there, and I think I can speak for you as well, you don't think about that. You're thinking, at that point, you're doing everybody a favor because you're just the biggest burden and it's an end to the pain. But you don't understand that that's not going to end the pain. What that's going to do,
it's cause more pain on others.
It's going to transfer that pain to other people that you love and care about. And, if you're like me, you're not a burden. You deserve life. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to feel safe. You deserve to feel comfortable. You deserve to love yourself. Choose yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, folks like us, we have a tendency to do people pleasing. You know, codependency is a big freaking thing for us. Putting ourselves last, doing the things for others first. You got to choose yourself.
Absolutely.
And it feels wrong at first. 100% it feels wrong at first. I felt so selfish going to the ranch the first week.
Yeah.
You know? And then by the third or fourth week, I was like, I am exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to be doing. Best decision I've ever made in my life. It is okay to not be okay. It is okay to not know what's going on and not feel like you don't have to put a smile on for everybody. You don't have to mask. You know, it's exhausting. Stop wasting your energy pretending to be okay when you're not.
Absolutely.
Instead, let's use that energy to make yourself feel better, to do something that'll make you feel better. Because all of that is poison, man. And holding that in and not talking about it and just brooding on it, keeping it in, you're just poisoning yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, and changing your mindset, doing something like this, choosing yourself and choosing recovery, it doesn't just change your mind. It changes your body. It changes how you talk. It changes how you think. It changes how you see things. It changes your perspective. You know, like I set boundaries with people now. Like I was never able to set a boundary with my dad, and I was able to set a boundary with him. You know, he got to talking about a sore subject, and I was like, Dad, I'm not talking about this right now. We can maybe talk about it later, but right now, it's not something I want to talk about, and we're not going to talk about it.
Right.
You know, and there's going to be the times where people in your life are going to think it's their fault that you're going through, like, you're the way that you are. They're going to think it's their fault, but it's nobody's fault, really. I think we were talking about this earlier. Yeah. It's nobody's fault. Yeah. Sometimes it's just the luck
life.
Of the draw.
Yeah, it's life.
And, you know, life is hard enough as it is. Don't make it harder on yourself.
Right.
You know, it's just choose yourself. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to love yourself 100%.
And on that note, I thank you for coming on my show today. If somebody out there is needing help with, you know, mental health, alcohol, substance abuse, anything, reach out to us on Instagram at Morning Juice Pod. You can leave a message on the YouTube channel. Just reach out to us and we'll get you the help that you need. That being said, happy Mother's Day once again, and we will see you next time on the Morning Juice. See ya.